Greetings, one and all. Welcome back to another blockbuster episode of the Dead Air Dudes. I'm Raka. Over there is Izzy, and we have joining us E.
Welcome to the Rom-Com Romp. Today, we're going to be reviewing the granddaddy of them all, arguably one of the best, or if not the best, romantic comedy of all time, the seminal When Harry Met Sally, directed by Rob Reiner, written by Nora Ephron.
Pretty much the template for modern day romantic comedy movie.
We're going to have three men analyze a romantic movie.
Because we're here to break down the stereotype that men who are men cannot review a romantic comedy. Please. We watch movies.
I could drink wine.
Perfect.
Yes, apropos.
All right, the 1989 classic. Do you want to start off, Rocco?
Okay. The movie starts out in, I believe, 1977 in the University of Chicago, where none other than the lead role played by Billy Crystal is Harry, obviously. He is bound for coming home to New York City, and he hitches a ride with his then girlfriend's good friend. I don't know if it's best friend. Sally. Harry. Sally.
Harry Met Harry.
Played by none other than Meg Ryan.
That's the next one.
The indelible Meg Ryan. So, they hitch a ride, and Harry's character is very New York. Very curt, very open, little brass. Sally is not from New York. Good-natured, happy-go-lucky, the epitome of a smiley face.
You know, she's genuinely happy, and they actually talk about that several early on in the film. How
Billy Crystal plays a very glum, the epitome of negativity and pessimism, doom and gloom character, and they have lively discussions about all things relationship, culminating in a diner scene, which is very important through the movie as it reoccurs. They're at a diner, and Izzy, what does she say as he's talking to her about men and women can't really be friends because of the whole sex thing?
Yeah, but there's a couple. You're skipping a couple things here. When they go out to eat at the first diner.
That's what I'm saying. The first diner.
And they're talking to the fact that he's like, all right, tell me about yourself. We have a long trip, so tell me about your ex or whatever. He goes, oh, he says something to the effect that that she has an ex, that she broke up with her ex, whatever. He's like, how do you know that? He goes, oh, what's your ex's name? And his name was Sheldon. He goes, Sheldon. Sheldon doesn't, give it to you. You know what I mean? You
can't see yourself screaming, Sheldon, Sheldon, Sheldon.
Fuck me, Sheldon. Hump me, Sheldon. Sheldon does the taxes. Sheldon doesn't give it to you. You know what I mean? And that's the whole thing. And then he goes, okay, why did you guys break up? And she goes, I'm not going to tell you that. He goes, you know what? I don't want to know. And that's a theme throughout the whole movie. When every time he says that, she has to respond. So she tells him that she had these days of the week underpants. And
she have Sunday.
Tuesday. And then he starts getting, that Sheldon starts getting jealous. Where's Sunday? Where'd you leave Sunday? Whose house you left Sunday? And they don't make Sunday because of God. so Harry just looks at her like, okay. And that's basically,
It's awkward, and they walk into the diner, and he says he knows why. Why she's very. She has this view that men and women can be friends, and that the sex never gets involved. And he looks at her and says, "Oh, now I get it. And before they walk into the diner, he tell me, what do you get? And he says, you obviously have never had great sex.
Oh,
And she follows him into the diner and screams to a whole bunch of strangers, I've had plenty of great sex.
Which that leads to the whole Sheldon,
Yeah. So, she's sheltered, a little reserved, a lot reserved. And you can tell, again, you tell a lot of subtext about her character. She's very particular. She orders her food in a particular, almost obnoxious way. I want my salad here, the dressing on the side. It has to be coated perfectly. I want strings of carrots this way, blah, blah. And he's looking at her like, oh my God, I'll have the number 3, So they don't get along. They don't spark. There's no chemistry. They're very awkward.
But there's a part where he's looking at her, he's like,
You're quite attractive.
what attractive? He's like, you're hitting on me. Dude, what you going with,
Your girlfriend.
whatever, your girlfriend, whatever. He goes, no, it's not a point for discussion. It's you're an attractive person. Why can't a man tell a woman she's attractive? Because all be hitting on me, and then that's what leads to a man cannot be friends with a woman that he finds attractive. Unless you go,
this is far too complicated.
Exactly. Like relationship between men and women. Which this movie straddles that line nice.
Far too complicated.
Okay, moving on.
So they get to Manhattan, and they talk about this and that through the whole road trip. A lot centering around the movie Casablanca, and she leaves him off at I guess that's a landmark place in Lower Manhattan.
Yeah.
I believe it's near City Hall, right? Anyway, it's a landmark, and he drops her off, and they have an awkward departure. Like, oh, maybe we could be friends. It was a nice road trip. And, because the whole sex thing, he says, nah, it's not really a good idea.
She goes,
they have an awkward handshake.
The only person I knew in New York. And,
and
have a nice life.
It becomes pivotal later, so that's why they're there. And then they go their separate ways. And as the movie progresses, and we should have said this from the outset, the movie it's just well done from an editorial point of view, and from the director. They intersperse the movie with a lot of quick snippets with old couples.
Yeah. How they tell
how they met, the first time they saw her. Oh, we're together for 30 years. We're 40 years. We had a rough time here. One had like 3 divorces and came back to the first love. It's a well done movie in that sense, where it keeps you hooked. It never, in a creative way, never lets you go thinking this is all about relationships, all different types. And they do it in subtext. They do it with friends. They do it with other friends. Billy Crystal's character, Harry, is basically a vehicle for all things that guys think about.
Yes.
In relationships, that you can't get involved. You should cut out here. What marriage is for me? What is the sex expectation for a guy? And Meg Ryan is the female point of view and her friends of what's your expectation of how life should be. And that comes to a play later as they go on. And then what happens as the movie progresses?
The dialogue within this movie is probably one of the best written romantic comedies I have ever seen. It's just bang bang.
Well,
it's just, also attribute that, give kudos that to the actors themselves, who also
the actors brought it. No, the actors bring it home, because I've read many times in many different articles critiquing the movie that this is not how men and women speak, but the actors have great chemistry. That to me is one of the home run characteristics of this movie. The chemistry is so great that they override the dialogue. The dialogue is meant for us. It's not meant to be reality TV. it's meant for us to stimulate and engage in the conversation and the relationships and where they are in their points of life. So it does a great thing with that. So we don't see them until 5 years later.
Where in the airport, Harry, who's a political consultant, I do believe, runs into at that moment you see Sally and her boyfriend at the time, Joe, and she's going on a flight. So he went to take her to the airport for the flight. Out of nowhere, Harry shows up, and it so seemed that Harry used to work with Joe, or at least had a connection. So he goes, "Hey, Joe, how are you?" At that moment, he kind of sees Sally, knows her kind of, sort of, but doesn't recognize her. Okay? Can't really place her. Says it's up to Joe, whatever. Interesting. He gets introduced again to Sally, and he walks away, and she goes, "Thank God he couldn't place me. I drove from Chicago to New York.
Worst trip of her life.
Worst trip she ever had." Yada yada continues. So what happens, of course, as usual, in the plane, he recognizes her to a degree. He's like, "Did we ever, And it's like, no, we drove to New York together after graduation, and
well, she brings up the whole thing he said about men and women and can't be friends and sex. And then he says, "No, I renege on that. There's an amendment to it." And I love the line that she says, "You look like a normal person, but you're really the angel of death." She can't stand him. He skeeves her out. He has all of these, I would term it to be male chauvinist, closed-minded viewpoints of relationships. And he's very arrogant and obnoxious about it. He's your typical New Yorker.
Don't forget, at this point, Harry is about to get married. So
he's engaged, yes.
Exactly. So Sally sees that. She's like, wow. She's almost surprised that he's so upbeat. She even mentions it to him that he's actually planning stuff and not thinking about, the eventual end, demise, whatever. They have a couple more exchanges, and
very pivotal. He asked her, "How long should I hold somebody after sex?" And that comes into play later, but he reveals his side where, he probably has mastered the slip and go, and says nobody has ever complained because his sex is awesome. And, she's like, "You're just pig. You're just pig. Women want to be held," and the whole thing.
And he's like, "Well, how long is being held? Is 5 minutes to the next morning enough?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, I bet you later." Let me take a wild guess. You like to be held all night, right? And boom. And so it's just like he's so on one extreme.
But you got to applaud him, knowing that she repulsed by him. He still asked her out. "Hey, you want to have dinner?" He's engaged. She's in a relationship, and he still asks her for dinner.
Friends.
Right. So
switch that. We'll each other for another 5 years. So now it's 10 years from the first meeting in Chicago after graduation. Now they're both 31 years old at this point.
And so Sally's at brunch. It looks like the Four Seasons or something to that ilk. And she's with her girlfriends. And one of her close girlfriends, Marie, played by late Carrie Fisher, sorry, is obviously relaying her issues with the man she's seeing, who is married. And she snoops through his files, his receipts, all this stuff. He still buys stuff for his wife. She's the side chick. And she keeps lamenting that the guy she's seeing is never going to leave his wife. And Meg Ryan confirms it, and the other friend confirms it. Like, we know this, but I guess she's got nothing else going. She stays with it. Meg Ryan character, Sally, reveals that she just broke up with Joe.
Yep.
And it was time. And they grew apart, and they just had different interests and blah, blah, blah. And they're immediately trying to set her up. And Carrie Fisher, hysterical, pulls out a Rolodex For all you people in the present time doesn't know what that is, it's like a mini file cabinet that has all these names, addresses, contacts, and everything else. They start pulling names. Oh, this guy. How about I set you up with this guy? It's way too soon. It's way too raw. And this is where I think you're going to appreciate this. In the same transition, at the same timeline, they go to Harry, who's talking to his best friend at a Giant game. They're in old Giant Stadium. They're doing the wave. In between the wave, he's telling his best friend that his wife has asked for a divorce, and not straight out. It's slow, tortuous. She says this. She had the movers there. I knew the gig was up when the movers showed up, and he asked the movers, "When did she contact you?" A week ago. She had his all planned. And she says one of the greatest lines when he says, he asked the wife, "You planned this a week ago. You're talking about a break. You're talking about separation. Don't you love me anymore?" And she says, I don't think I ever loved you. And it just breaks his heart. Meanwhile, there's a Giant game going on, and they're doing the wave. And good Giant footage, by the way. But, and his friend is saying, well, it's screwed up, man. That's fucked up. It's a wrong way to go,
It's harsh. And I'm a writer, and that's particularly harsh. I know dialogue. I know, but that's particularly.
So the original introduction to Harry is this shallow, superficial, crude know-it-all who now gets shot down because he actually loved his wife. He now gets shot down to a very vulnerable, a very traumatized, because he really did love his present-day wife. And he's being shown the door. It's kind of like the reversal of roles here.
And to make things worse, that whole story was made up. The thing was, he just, started dating her tax attorney or accountant or something, and he just left him. And
that's the problem.
So he's completely crushed. They go to some other in a bookstore. Sally's with Marie in a bookstore, and Harry's there, and Harry's hiding behind a bookcase and looking at Sally, and Marie sees you because the guy's looking at you. Do you know him? And she's like, "Oh yeah, that's Harry. That's Harry. I forgot his name right now, but yeah, it's Harry." And
So this is the third time they're meeting.
Exactly. You were there
10 years.
He's a pig, whatever. Oh, what? I forgot the exact phrase that she used, but she's like, "Oh, well, he's married, whatever." Well, it's 5 years ago, I mean, you never know. Maybe he's not married no more. This time around.
So again, for all you folks out there who don't know what a bookstore is, they're at a bookstore, they meet, and then they do transition to a lot of good scenes in New York City. So now they're at like Central Park, or they're walking in the streets.
Their friendship.
They're kind of getting reacquainted, and they're commiserating. They're commiserating about each of their ended relationships.
Admitted company. So this time around, they have a shared, I guess, history or a shared situation that he got dumped, she got dumped, so they are depressed together. So they basically do everything, and they're actually friends. And
this is where the movie really grows, and it grows really deep roots, where the main thrust of the movie about friendship and sex gets now overturned. And this is one of the brilliance of the script. And now you have two people who the last thing on their mind is getting into a relationship, and they're not attracted per se to each other at the moment. So they progress to becoming very good friends. They call late at night. One says Casablanca's on, let's call. They watch the movie together on their phones. They talk about each other's dates. They talk about each other's lives, what went wrong, what they didn't do, what they did do, friends. They've become each other's best friend.
Yeah.
And from there, I'd like to touch on the scene where Harry talks about his nightmare. I thought this was a hysterical part where he says, I have this reoccurring nightmare that he's having sex, and he's doing this in front of the
judges,
a panel of Olympic judges.
And then it was grandma's mom or his grandma, whatever, and
He just freaks out, and
He's like, oh, with a dismount or something, give him a little score.
And I think this was the same sequence of events where Sally confides that she's going to go on a date with somebody. And there was that awkward momentary pause where, for the first time, whether you call it jealousy or you call it a threatening of the friendship, here comes the third wheel, there comes a wedge. But they lay the seeds, and again, it's really great acting, where it lays the seeds of, I wasn't ready for you to be ready to move on. And
hey, it's a double adage. Misery loves company. So as soon as, if you're in a bad way, it's better off, better off being together in a bad way.
But instead of objecting and saying anything, or maybe even introducing his feelings, he does the classic brush off, and you gonna wear that? You gonna wear that to the day? You're very pretty in skirts. You should wear a skirt. I'm sure at this point he's not ready to be, but it's like somebody said about air. You don't miss it until somebody takes it away. So
he has dated and he has had sex, because there's a whole.
But he's used to having her. He's used to talking to her all the time. Christmas shopping, Christmas tree shopping, clothes shopping, talking on the phone, talking about other friends, going to dinner. They're each other's company with no other people involved. Now, that person is going on a date. He's not ready. And that becomes evident later. And that shows how much of an impact that whole Helen breakup was. And I just beautifully done with the acting, where you get a lot from what you see, not so much what they say. And as it turns out later, and again, the director does a great job, Ryan does a great job to move it along without spelling out the dates and how much time has elapsed. You just see them in their dialogue as time progresses, where each has their own failed dates. They don't move on. They become serial daters. And the worst part is Harry's become a serial sleeping around town guy. So go on a date. He'll make fun of how bad the date was. She was insufferable. The conversation was horrible. Good thing you sleep with her. Oh yeah, I did.
Yeah, which is another thing. It's the message that he always keeps telling her, like, because his whole thing is that he doesn't believe that she is really over Joe, and she hasn't been as actively depressed or actively hurt as he is. And it's almost, I want to say he's jealous of how well she's handling it. And there'll be a scene later on where
here's where it builds up, because he keeps telling her that he goes on these dates, sleeps with these women, makes the slip and exits, never calls or says anything again, doesn't follow up. There's no relationship building. There's no second date. It's a one and done. And she gets appalled by it, because she speaks for the women in general who get screwed by this guy, misled by this guy, his type of behavior. And they're at the diner scene. And this is the memorable pinnacle moment of Harry Met Sally, which is unfortunate because the great movie as a whole body is fantastic and a learning tool. But this scene is, if there's icing on the cake with sprinkles and decorations, this is the top piece. They're in the diner, and they're still continuing with the conversation of giving the slip. And how do you know they had a great time, she asked. Because I know. I just know. No complaints, but I know they had a great time. Oh, really? And this is a moment where I think Sally has evolved. She's very prim, proper, reserved, handles herself in public very well. Was appalled 10 years ago when she said had plenty of great sex. And it was like, the look that she had. This is great as far as the evolution of a character. Now she's in the middle of a crowded diner in Manhattan, and she's standing up for all women who's been hurt, and she probably has been hurt that way too. And she starts faking that trip to Climax Hill.
He fakes the orgasm. It's the famous Cat's Daddy scene. It's the orgasm, where it's like a 25-second scene, which ends in the older lady saying, "I have what she's having."
This fabulous scene. But you know what? It wasn't a scene that was put for novelty, clickbait catch. It wasn't for shock value. That was great relevance in doing that scene, and she did it, grand slam style. You know, and Billy, my man Harry, for the once I've seen him in this movie, looks embarrassed. You know, like, "Oh, what are you doing? What are you doing?" And maybe it sinks in a little bit into his head that he has been treating women wrong. You know, it's not really fully realized until the emotional climax, I think, in the movie, where one of the emotional climaxes is when they're now, well, first, before I get to that, their mutual friends want to set each other up. They want to set up their mutual friends on a date. Her best friend, Carrie Fisher, and his best friend on a dinner date, hoping that Harry will go out with.
Wait, before that, isn't New Year's before that part, or New Year's after that part?
The New Year's where they vow to be each other's New Year's date if they don't have somebody.
Yeah, the New Year's where they share a pact.
Yeah, I think so, but
But I think all these moments are pivotal in the sense of the building up of Harry's eventual, realization at the end about that.
Well, what happens is, without going into every detail, the two friends who they try to be set up with, it doesn't work out. They actually click.
They try to beat each other up, and it ends up backfiring that the people they're being set up with like each other, and
Well, it was hysterical. They wanted to give some time because they didn't want to. The wounds are still sore. They didn't want to let them down too fast. And in a snap of fingers, they both grab a cab together and off they go. But they've now progressed now a couple months. I'd say maybe a year. They're doing well. They're moving in together. They're helping them move. They're in a nice townhouse. You know, again, the one thing with this movie is everybody seems to be really well off.
Don't forget, but just before that, where they're buying them, I guess, a housewarming gift.
Oh yeah. How could I forget that? Yeah, that is the reason. That is the. They look like they're in one of those Brooks Sonic stores or something, where one of high tech.
Brookstone or whatever it was.
Yeah, those high tech stores at the time. And Harry's having a ball. You know, you could tell he's having a ball with her. Genuinely hanging out, being himself, being free. And that's the one of the things he did explain to his best friend, that he loves hanging out with Sally because for the first time ever, there is no sex involved. There is no overlying elephant in the room. There is no expectation. He can be free to be himself.
You couldn't tell to his best friend. And,
right. And he gets a little upset at that, but
judge him. So
they're in this techie store, and they see his karaoke machine, and they start playing around, singing a song. Tape player. Yeah, well, and yeah, they start singing, and then she starts singing, and it's beautiful to see two people who they're interacting no matter where they are. They're always into each other. They could care less if they're in public, they're in private. They're true friends. They are true, comfortable people in each other's.
Interrupted. Bye.
Interrupted because the face Billy Crystal makes is, his face is in the movie is probably what sold them at, this is my character. This is my actor. This is who I want. Because the face, this look, the look he gave was as though not only the ghost, like every ghost in his family shot up at once.
Yeah, and it was
drop the mic and they're telling.
And her, boyfriend,
the husband, the realization that she never really loved Harry at all. And here she is now married to a new guy, the tax guy, looking stellar, happy, almost to the point that, hey, this is Harry. He's pretty much an afterthought. I don't even know why I'm introducing saying hi. It's for posterity and congeniality's sake. And hi, bye. And that one scene wrecked him.
Yep.
Harry's completely wrecked now because
Destroyed.
all the healing that's supposedly meeting Sally and getting over Helen is for naught. He is back, if not worse, in a desolate place. And yes, they're now with the friends, with the new place. And Harry's obviously distraught. You know, they're arguing about this hideous coffee table. And they asked Harry's opinion, and
Harry loses it. He completely loses it, and he
loses his shit.
about how eventually marriages end and everything, and then you're gonna be divorced and arguing about this, and then
Here comes back doom and gloom.
arguing about this hideous coffee table that no one wanted in the first place. And he's like, I thought you liked that. I was being nice. So he storms out. Sally runs after him. He says some things he regrets, especially to the fact, like we said before, how she is so good at, like, she broke up with Joe and she feels no pain, at least in his eyes. Well, he's barely hanging on. See, you saw Helen, he was completely wrecked. So he kind of goes off on her. She goes off on him. And then
he makes a valid point, just not in the right way. He says that you're Miss Goody Two Shoes Sunshine. Everything is great. Nothing bothers her. And she too. She puts on a good face. When they're together, I truly believe they forget about their past and they're very happy. But what happens moments later? They hug, they make up.
Yep.
Again, Harry's character has evolved. He would never apologize. He would never hug.
Never apologize.
But now, what does he say to her? Can I get a word in? Can I get a word? Are you done? Can I say something? I'm sorry. And he hugs her. He realizes this is his friend who's there to support him.
And he's there to support her.
Yeah. And so when that fateful call comes, that Sally calls Harry, it says, and she's broken off. I mean, tears. River Jordan is flowing. The dam broke. It's coming down hard and fast. She could barely inaudibly mumble words that Joe, her ex, for 6+ years, who she thought she was going to marry, who she said was going to have kids and have something else, not just to have sex on the kitchen floor, which they never had. It was just cold Mexican tile. That all the stuff, all the dreams out the window, and Joe had called her to inform her that he was getting married, and out of courtesy, she should know, which again is kind of odd. But to have that phone call to break her up, she realizes that Joe is marrying somebody else, that Joe never wanted to marry her. What's wrong with her? What's the whole situation? And of course, Harry runs immediately over. They're each other's sponsor in relationship hell. He runs over immediately. He's there for her.
Consoling.
And he is, from the outright, just there to hug, to be a sounding board, to just be there. And like they say, one thing leads to another. It's very strong emotions, and they do the deed.
Yeah, they kiss.
They kiss again.
Oh, they kiss again, and then
they strip clothes off, and you know what follows.
Yeah. So next morning,
wait, the face again. Right.
Harry's face is like a face of like, what the F?
Again, the director work is masterful. where you see Meg Ryan's beautiful face in bliss. And as you pan backwards, you see Billy Crystal's hard face. He hasn't slept all night. He's just staring into the sky like, what have we just done?
Do not forget, he did mention previously to her, so we know after sex, how long do you like to be held? And she
Yes, that's why it comes into play.
Thinking he knows that she likes to be held all night, so he stayed probably awake all freaking night, only to not to diss her, not to offend her, whatever, because he wanted to get the heck out of there. Now, she wakes up. She's like, oh, where you going? Oh, I gotta go. I got this, I got that, whatever. He acts all weird, makes it all weird. He leaves.
He's ultra elusive.
Exactly.
He shut it down. He doesn't know how. He just doesn't even want to acknowledge it until they have dinner.
The problem is, at that point, I think he already was having feelings for her.
Oh, I think he's always had. The two of them, even when they had played Pictionary or something, they were with other people, and they couldn't help but critique the people with their friends. You know, Harry can't help but critique the new guy in Sally's life, and Sally does the same thing with her friends about critiquing the new girl in Harry's life. You know, it's subtle, it's not subtle, it's outright jealousy, it's outright judgmental. It is fueled by caring and friendship, like that person's misplaced. Why are they with that person? It's all the stuff they don't realize they see in the other person until they take it to the other level, the real romantic, passionate love level. And, you know, again, the whole movie's about elephants in the room. The whole movie's wall-to-wall elephants. But again, massively done, tastefully done.
At dinner, she says it was a mistake. And he's like, oh.
He jumps all over it. He's like white on rice on that baby.
Let him off the hook. She let him off the hook, and he took it, ran through the door, and that was it. That was it. So after that, the friends are getting married.
Julie.
At the wedding, they have essentially another fight where.
Oh, it was an epic fight. It's hysterical. It spills into the kitchen and then back into the main forum, the dance hall, and the couple, their best friends who are getting married.
Oh, we wanted this could never happen without Harry and Sally, who if we found each one even a little bit attractive, this wouldn't happen, or something to that effect, you know. So
the whole thing is terrible. I've never watched the movie.
Well,
great movie. Sorry to wake you from your power nap. For the record, he was slaving all day building a moat around his castle.
Yep.
So to move things forward, it's awkward now. It's not the same between them. It's the Christmas season. They're not as close. They don't call each other. I would assume
she slapped the crap out of him.
Yes.
And obviously after that, he felt bad. So what? He calls her, and he calls her, and she.
The annotated version.
She's over it. You know?
So, hurrying along, it's New Year's Eve, and she's invited with her friends who just got married. She's invited to a ball. So was he, but he doesn't want to go. He's not in the mood. It's just not his scene. It's a done-up kind of ballroom. Looks like some hotel. You know, balloons, fancy dresses, the whole thing. It's maybe 2 minutes to midnight, and Meg Ryan's character Sally is displaced. She's there in body but not in spirit. She's dancing with somebody.
Wants to leave before 12, and they're like,
leave me because everybody kisses at midnight, and it's just not her scene. And she realizes, I really don't want to be here. It's torture for her. You got Billy Crystal dressed in sweats and jeans in frigid New York City.
Sweats and jeans.
Yeah, walking the streets of New York, and what does he do? Lo and behold,
accepted.
He walks through the very same landmark place where he met Sally. Well, Sally dropped him off 12 years ago from that road trip.
Yep.
And then everything hits him. And that's that moment where he starts walking fast, and he starts running. He tries to hail a cab. He can't get the cab, and he starts hauling ass. I guess he's in great shape. He starts hauling ass, and he runs. He makes it to the ball, which, they're taking a little movie latitude here. He can't sprint to this ball in 2 minutes, but he gets there. Meg Ryan's leaving. She's distraught. She's in
Looks on their
pieces.
faces. He's like,
And what does he say to her? He says some iconic lines, beautiful lines.
has
When you know the person you want to spend the rest of your life with, you
want to start that and immediately simply the fact that she goes, I hate you, Harry. I really hate you. When you say things like that, it makes it so hard for me to hate you or something along those lines.
As she mumbles, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. He draws her in. They kiss as the ball drops. They ring in the new year. And again, like we said in the beginning, the movie has interspersed couples throughout the whole movie, talking about their relationships, when they met, how much in love they are, how many years they've been together. And you get to them. They're the couple now at the end. Yeah. And they're saying, we started out hating each other. We became friends. Then we became lovers. It took 12 and a half years.
It took 12 years, and 3 months later, we got married.
So for a movie in the late 80s, and, they drew in Casablanca for the reason that it was one of the first ever, you can't even say comedies, romance movies. To where they are now, they've now set the bar for all romantic comedies then and thereafter.
I think also figured that the Casablanca, there was a lot of corollaries between Casablanca and what's going on in the movie at the time.
Well, again, right? The whole movie's a vehicle for asking multiple relationships questions. Would you rather be with the guy who's stable, who has everything, and you're going to wake up, there's money, bread on the table, roof over your head, or you want to be with the love of your life, who's running from the law, who's a bartender in Casablanca, who's nothing's guaranteed, but you love him. Love him, love him, love him.
You're making the second guy sound terrible.
But
no, I'm not. It's all a personal preference, but for them,
well, he's running from the law.
Well, the contrast is in the very beginning, Meg Ryan character Sally would stay with the tried and true, reliable guy. She hates and loves and learned to love. I don't know what you want to call it.
In no way, shape, or form was Harry the man for her.
No, they were completely mismatched. They're opposites like you wouldn't believe. But over time,
they were perfectly met for each other.
They complement each other well.
Exactly.
And also, let's not forget the musical score is perfectly done by Harry Connick Jr.
Touche. So with that, let's give it a rating. Obviously we know we love this movie, so just for argument's sake.
But as a person who never saw it, I'll give it a rating. Once all you people who saw it give it a rating.
Give it a pop for all the fixings. I think it's arguably the best, if not the best. I said it before, romantic comedy of all time. I give it the highest possible rating.
I gave it the highest possible rating and then some, with nachos and all the fixings on top.
Gummy bear.
With a side of Pepto-Bismol. I mean, all of it.
The whole 9 yards,
E?
No chance of watching this movie. It's not doing it.
Actually, that's the best recommendation we can give you. That E doesn't want to watch it. So that was a Rom-Com Romp with When Harry Met Sally.
It's a skunky movie.
Again, it has superior directing, out of this world acting, great musical score. It is one of the best, if not the best romantic comedy out there. Of course, There's tons and tons to
You think
review
this is better
coming up.
than You Got Mail?
That's coming up next.
Actually, no, it's not coming up next. Love Actually is next. After that, we'll do
Wait, hold on. E, what's your rating on You Got Mail?
Better than this.
We will leave that.
Okay, enough said.
We'll leave that when
I'll tell you
Oh,
what.
no. I look forward to You Got Mail review. Hey, E is going to take lead on that one.
Before I dialed in, I got when Harry met Sally confused with Sleepless in Seattle.
that's another one on the list. But next will be Love Actually.
Okay.
By You've Got Mail.
Thanks for tuning in for another episode of Rom-Com review, retro review, what have you. Again, we'd like to thank you all for listening. And as a side note, coming soon, we'd like to thank all of you individually for our 500 plus follower on Instagram, our 250 plus podcast download, and the continued support and love that you guys have shown us at Dead Air Dude.
Yeah, everybody who enjoys us and who wants to hear us babble about nonsense, we appreciate it, and all around the world. And thank you, and stay tuned for more. So and that being said, have a good night. I'm Izzy.
I'm Raka.
Sleepy E.
Enjoy the movie.
All right, take care, everybody. Stay safe. Save the whales.